Hello, my name's Flaherty. I'm with the Global Landscapes Forum, and I'm here today with Lara Yacob, the Project Manager for the Good Growth Partnership at the United Nations Environment Program. Thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you, Eden.
Cheers. To begin with, can you just tell us a bit about what the Good Growth Partnership actually is and what your role is within it?
Yeah, absolutely. So the Good Growth Partnership is the first integrated approach program that the GEF funded as a pilot project, and it aimed to essentially remove deforestation from commodities produced in Paraguay, Brazil, Indonesia, and Liberia. I think I mentioned Paraguay as well, 4 countries. And our role as UNEP was looking at the transaction bit, or trying to essentially embed sustainable finance as a catalyst for removing deforestation from the production of those commodities.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
And as part of your work with the Good Growth Partnership, you've been looking into how to mitigate investor or financial institution exposure to deforestation risk commodities.
Exactly.
Firstly, can you tell us what a deforestation risk commodity actually is?
Yeah. So a deforestation risk commodity is a commodity that is produced in an area that is at risk of deforestation. And that's primarily high conservation value regions, biodiversity hotspots, high carbon stock areas. So for example, the Upper Ghanaian forest, the Amazon, the Cerrado, the Chaco in Paraguay. So we're trying to essentially say you can still produce, but do it in a way that is not putting these habitats at risk.
Part of the way that you do this is by shifting to nature-based solutions.
Yes.
Could you maybe explain what that means?
Yeah, nature-based solutions. So first of all, it's really a journey. When we work with investors and when we work with banks, we say this is a journey from first identifying, assessing, managing, and mitigating your risk. And then secondly, as an outcome of that, you need to start looking at mitigation measures for your sort of financing or for your portfolio. And indeed, nature-based solutions is one of those interventions. And that's really using nature or sort of the natural landscape for restorative practices. So an example could be if an area has been greatly deforested and there is a lot of erosion and runoff and pollution, we say, well, maybe a measure could be replanting with native vegetation that will increase the sort of carbon sink. It will help water quality. It will bring greater biodiversity to the area. And then, of course, part of that is, how do you quantify the benefits of that nature-based solution so that, first of all, the nature-based solution is bankable and investable, and you can kind of quantify what the payments could be, because ultimately you want these projects to be self-sustaining.
Yeah, that's interesting that you mentioned that one of the things that's a challenge to introduce these is the ability to quantify the results.
Yeah.
What are some of the other challenges you face within this area?
The biggest is capacity. And that's really capacity across the board of, first of all, I mentioned understanding the risk. So, why is investing or financing these particular commodities in these particular regions? Because it differs from region to region. Why is it risky? First of all, how is that risk internalized and assessed by a financial institution? And then secondly, how do you mitigate that risk? And that really requires a number of great minds, if you will, within a financial institution to come together and create those products and services in a way that allows for the client to take them up, and sort of use those products and services. And secondly, one that is, how should I say, not so risky for the financial institution to deploy, because usually nature-based solutions or any form of innovative finance in the land use space comes at a great risk for a financial institution in terms of repayment or default. And yeah, oftentimes we see capacity as the biggest obstacle for understanding, one, how to structure the deal, and secondly, how to develop and deploy those types of products.
Okay, and I guess next would be like, how are you overcoming that, or how are you working with financial institutions to help them better understand how they can use these kind of products?
Well, we offer training. So I would say the bread and butter of the Good Growth Partnership for 4 years, and now our work through the FOLUR Global Platform has been on delivery of training programs to mainstream financial institutions. So that's banks, both private sector banks, development banks, state-owned banks, but also investors, impact investors, corporates. And then we have identified the real need for offering capacity building to central banks as well, because they are the ones creating the enabling environment for those types of interventions to come into play. So for example, with the Central Bank of Paraguay and Brazil, we help them better understand land use risks, deforestation risks, biodiversity risks. So that's one aspect of how we've been able to work with financial institutions is through capacity building.
Awesome. I'm no worries if they haven't got one straight to mind, but have you got any examples of where training with a financial institution or a private investors has really led to a shift in how they operate and some success stories?
I would say working with the Central Bank of Paraguay. This was a journey we embarked upon for about 3 years under the Good Growth Partnership, first offering technical assistance through something called Resolution 8, which was essentially a decree by the central bank to make the integration of environmental, social, and governance criteria compulsory for financial institutions lending. So that was sort of one aspect. Secondly, they had to say, well, okay, we're the central bank. Our remit is supervision. So then we said, okay, we'll develop a training program for the supervisors of the central bank in order to engage the member banks on sort of sustainability, sustainable finance, and that took about 2 years to complete. And subsequent to that, the central bank has sort of come back and said, well, now we've placed sustainability and topics like climate stress testing, land use change at the center of our policy. And now they're in the process of developing a kind of a green bureau sort of modeled after what the Central Bank of Brazil has done. So I would say it's definitely a journey, and it's one that requires a long and deep engagement with a financial institution if you want to sort of see results coming out of that. And the central bank was also the one that opened the door as a result of Resolution 8 for us to then train the Mesa Finança members in Paraguay. So that was over 22 private sector financial institutions. And again, this agenda is slowly rising in terms of importance for Paraguayan financial institutions.
Amazing. I understand that this might be a little bit outside of your wheelhouse because you work with financial institutions, but how does it actually look on the ground for, say, farmers or people in the agricultural sector looking for finance?
Yeah, so this is sort of part of the journey. Once you've offered the capacity, and I think once a financial institution starts to then look at mitigation strategies or realigning their portfolios to greener finance, they'll start, and that's part of the theory of change, offering those incentives in terms of preferential lending, new financial products, maybe blended finance products, especially if it's with a public funding, to those farmers or producers or cooperatives. So it's a journey that we hope will yield, I would say, maybe more interventions and choice for the farmer to access credit. In the end, yeah.
I guess finally, is there anything else that you would like to mention about the Good Growth Partnership or your work?
Yeah, that it's a journey. We're at the beginning of it,
right.
And that I would really encourage the country programs to look at the importance of engaging financial institutions in their countries. And I would say first and foremost is to recognize that it's simply not about accessing finance immediately, but also building up the general capacity of the finance sector in that country to enable them then to sort of be a real player in this space.
Fantastic. Well,
Yeah.
I mean, thank you very much for taking the time to sit down with me
Absolutely.
and explain a bit about the Good Growth Partnership.
Absolutely.
Thank you
Thank you, Eden.
Cheers.